Welcome to Ground Control and Review Video Part 2, Assembly Part 2 of this Yak54 EPP 800mm Wingspan, which is 32 inches, 3D plane. So by the end of this video, we will have it ready for its maiden flight. Let's get started. Okay, so we are going to glue in our supports. Now, I went ahead and installed the control horn in my rudder, and I didn't double check the control horn to make sure that it was in fact undamaged. When I received this, the box was damaged. Double check everything. I didn't double check the control horn. I cut my channel for the control horn in the rudder, my slot for the rudder, and glued it in. Went to go connect the control rod, and the linkage stopped to it, and it broke in half. So I ended up having to cut it back out and then patch the foam, and then use one of my plastic control horns to install there. So when I received mine, I received some spare foam that they had in the box. I assumed kind of used it as packing material. This is the exact same foam. The plane is made out of EPP foam. It's the same thickness. Make sure that you hold on to that in case you later need to patch some of the foam on your plane, because this stuff works perfect. It's what I used to cut out a piece to glue in the rudder once I had to cut that control horn back out. I thought the control rod was 1mm control rod. It's actually 1.2mm control rod. So on these supports on the eyelet, I drilled those out to 1.5mm. I want just a tiny bit of play in there so that the support doesn't cause any binding in the control rod. So that'll allow it to support the control rod but also move freely through the eyelet. So I would recommend that you do that. Okay, and there was 4 of those in the kit. I thought there was just 2, but there's actually 4. So what I'm going to do is kind of evenly space these out between the control horn on the rudder and the control arm on the servo so that I get the best support possible. That looks pretty good. And I think I'm going to glue these into the horizontal support for the fuselage rather than the vertical support. So what I'm going to do, and I know you're probably not going to be able to see this, my hand's going to be in the way, but I'm going to move this to a position where the control rod is pretty straight, and I'm just going to use an ink pen to mark the outline of this support so I know where to cut the foam. Alright, and then the same thing with this one. Okay, so let's move those out of the way. I got my X-Acto blade, and these are about 5 or 6 millimeters. They're going to go into the foam about 5 or 6 millimeters deep, so I'm going to try not to cut all the way through the foam. Whoops. If I don't tear the plane up first. And just kind of pluck it out with a pair of pliers there, and then we'll check the fit. And again, I'm going to use hot glue. Well, I tell you, that EPP foam, it is tough stuff. Okay, that's going to work. And that's going to work. Okay, one at a time. Okay, now I'm just going to hold this in place. Make sure you got it nice and vertical, top to bottom, side to side. I'm going to hold that in place for a minute while that hot glue cools off a bit. Okay, so now they've cooled down enough to hold it in place. So now I'm just going to go over it with some more hot glue, just to add some additional support. So now when that cools, it should be good to go. We'll test it out. Okay, let's see how we did with the rudder. Alright, it looks like we're good to go on the rudder. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the elevator, and then we're on to the next step. Okay, all of our control surfaces are hooked up and working now. Everything is moving in the proper direction. So we are complete on that. Now it's time to move on to the landing gear. Alright, so now we want to complete the landing gear, and I don't like the way they have it assembled. You know, according to the guide, I don't think it, gluing the end of this 2mm carbon rod to the bottom of the wing plate is going to work very well. So my very inelegant solution was to take a couple of control horns and linkage stops and attach 2mm axle to that, and attach the control horn to the bottom of the wing. I'm going to go ahead and drill the hole out like they say to do in the assembly guide, and then I'm going to add some reinforcement to that area of the foam, rather than just having the EPP foam try and support the landing gear. I don't think that's going to work real well either. So it's an inelegant solution, but I think that it is going to work. So I'm going to go ahead and remove these from the control stops. When I come back, we'll drill the hole out and decide exactly where we want to attach the control horn to the wing. I've got my recommended CG locations marked with a marker. I definitely want the landing gear forward of the CG so it doesn't nose over, and I think I want the forward part of the wheel about flush with the forward edge of the leading edge of the wing. So I think that will work out pretty well, and that way the support for the control horn will be just forward of where the wing spar is, so it should have some good support from the wing spar for the landing gear. Okay, so I've got my hole drilled. There's one, and crisscross through from the other side. There's two, and I'm going to put my linkage stops back on. Let's see where we want to put our control horn, and I think we're going to be putting it close to where the wing actually glues into the horizontal wing plate. About 5mm back from that, I think, will give us the height that we want on the airframe. So that's going to go in about 10mm there, and I would say about 5mm back from where the wing meets the horizontal plate, and about 5mm back from the wing spar, I think, is where we want to put that. And this is going to go all the way through the wing. Okay, now dry fit it before you glue. Okay, there's one. And I'm going to get the other side, and then we'll glue it in. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the landing gear on it. I think that it's going to be setting up plenty high. Oh yeah, even with, I think, a 9-inch, yeah, with a 9-inch prop, it's setting up plenty high in the front. That's what it looks like underneath with the control horns in there. Just dry fitted right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is go ahead and glue in my control horns put the clips on the top of it, on the top of the control horns to secure those in after I glue it, and then we'll see what we have, and we'll see how we're going to reinforce this area right here for the landing gear. Okay, while I'm waiting on my supports for the landing gear to set up with the glue, we'll come back and do the reinforcement for the landing gear on this vertical portion of the fuselage. But now what I want to talk about is, while that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and glue in the motor mount that I have. Now, the motor that I have, the BR2208 1400 kV, comes with one of these cross mounts. And where the channels were cut out for the motor mount before I modified it, it was going to be a pretty snug fit with just that metal cross piece. And I wanted to put, you know, you're not going to glue this onto the foam. So I wanted to make a wood motor mount underneath it for this to attach to, so I can always, you know, pull the motor off easy enough. Well, I wasn't going to have enough surface area really to get much past where these holes are to attach my metal motor mount, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to crack the wood when I start screwing this on, and I also wanted a little more surface area to hold this mount on. So I cut this channel further out, about 3 millimeters further out in each direction, in order to make room for this wood motor mount, and the wood motor mount is going to fit in there fairly nice and snug. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that in, and then when everything sets up, I'll be able to go ahead and attach my motor. So I just wanted to show you that, and the little modification that I made to the cutout here for the motor mount to make it a little bit larger than it was set up for. I feel better about having a little more surface area to glue on there, and also a little bit of room for this steel motor mount in there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that glued on. I'm going to let everything set up, and then we'll come back and look at the reinforcement for the landing gear. So I have fabricated some supports for the landing gear, and I just used a Sharpie to color them black so that they look halfway decent. But what I want to do is, and let me grab the one on this side so I can show you. And the way I have this designed is it's going to support the landing gear top, bottom, and side to side. It's cut so that it kind of saddles both of the struts, the crossed struts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put those in there. That's going to support the landing gear on both sides. I'm going to use some hot glue to affix those, and then I think the landing gear is going to be good. I don't think the landing gear is going to go anywhere after that. So I will try and make a template for these and put those in the show notes. So look in the show notes to see if I in fact did that. I will try and make templates for these, so if you guys want to use those to make your own supports, I think these are going to work out really well. So I'm going to go ahead and glue in my supports now for the landing gear, and then I'm going to install the winglets. You just cut out these center pieces right here. The winglet slides over the main wing, both sides, and you want to make sure that you inset those enough from the wingtip, because they go back pretty far. You don't want them to interfere with your aileron hinge. So I think what I'm going to do right here, where you have the black tip, and then you have the white stripe, and then the black stripe, I think I'm going to put mine right inside that first black line from the wingtip, and in that position they're not going to interfere with the aileron. I don't know if there'll be a help to airflow going over the ailerons, but I think they'll look cool anyway. So I'm going to do it. So from this point forward, I'm just waiting on the glue to set up on the motor mount. I'm going to glue in my supports for the landing gear, glue in the winglets on the wing, and then just tidy up my wiring and everything. Put some Velcro on here, get my CG set up, and then we'll look at the finished build, because all we have left is just the minor cosmetic type stuff after the landing gear. So we'll take a look at that before I do the maiden flight, because it may come back not looking so good. Alright, our build is complete. Everything is installed except for the winglets. and I will install those at the first opportunity. I didn't want to install those last night. I was waiting on glue to set up, and I didn't want to disturb anything. But I think our build turned out pretty good. I'm slightly under my goal of a 2-to-1 thrust to weight ratio with this power system and battery that I have on here. I think the modification to the landing gear and the reinforcement added a little bit of weight. So I'm very close though. I'm just under it at 1.95 to 1 thrust to weight ratio. So I think that's going to work out just fine, and I'm happy with the reinforcement on the landing gear. I think that's going to work out well. So this is the end of the assembly video. I hope you guys found it useful. I know one of the complaints about this kit was that there was no build instructions for it. So hopefully this video will help some people out regarding this 3D plane or similar 3D planes. But just waiting for a break in the wind, and stay tuned. The next thing will be the maiden flight on this Yak54. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the air.